National Intelligence Estimate on Illegal Immigration. Some key judgments. So we have judged that illegal immigrants pose no direct national security risk to the United States. Illegal immigrants bolster the U.S. economy. Naturalization reform is needed. Uh, uh, Illegal immigrants will continue to overwhelm border communities. U.S. citizens traffic fentanyl in the United States, not illegal immigrants. Uh, Cartels have gained influence at the border. Cartels have grown the human smuggling industry considerably, and cartels are poised to consolidate further power along the border. So, some background on this. Why has illegal immigration become such a big political uh, issue in the United States? So it's become a real hot button issue, and goes from administration to administration, whether that's Democrat or Republican. The border being a vocal or very hot button big thing. Obviously, if you watch the news, why is this? Job creation is the main thing. People are insecure and feel that illegal immigrants are taking their jobs. We have found this not to be true. Why is this also a thing? Because people believe that illegal immigrants are associated with crime and or drug trafficking. We have also found no evidence that there is widespread drug trafficking committed just by normal illegal uh, migrant workers. Another hot button issue is because demographic and cultural change. While we have found no uh, serious evidence that there is a major cultural clash at the border that threatens the social cohesion of the American society, it is worth noting that American society as a whole has been affected by the illegal immigrant policy, population. So, what can we do to curb these issues? Well, we have to look at the humanitarian questions. How real are they? Well, the Center for Immigration Studies has found that there is a significant threat of border municipalities being overrun, such as uh, emergency services, hospitals, schools, by illegal immigrants displacing native citizens to the U.S. This has created serious contention in these communities, and we have also found that the human smuggling industry has led to the deaths of many illegal immigrants and uh, sometimes mass deaths, and this must be avoided at all costs. So it needs to be addressed by policy change targeting cartel activities. So how are we currently dealing with this? Well, travel, food, housing, healthcare have all been facilitated for illegal immigrants under the Biden administration by non-government organizations working with this administration. So how can this money be better spent? Illegal immigrants paid $11.6 billion in taxes in 2016, according to the American Immigration Council. This obviously seems like a lot of money, but how much are we spending? Well, Dwindle and Davis, the Heritage Foundation, have estimated that the Biden administration has spent $98.6 billion just in fiscal year 2022 on facilitating these efforts for illegal immigration. So what can we do about this? We can make them naturalized citizens and reform the immigration policy process so that they can begin paying taxes and becoming full-blown American citizens that create jobs and businesses that benefit the government instead of uh, them having to be supported by our government because of the humanitarian aspect of crossing a border. So, how does this relate to the economy? Why are illegal immigrants coming to the United States? This is key to understand. The number one reason is from our stay at the Cato Institute is that they are coming to seek better economic prosperity. While many see this as a threat, the opposite cannot be more true. Labor is needed in the United States. Brandon at the Cato Institute found that there is as low as 2% unemployment in some states, and that we must supplement our economy by any means necessary in order to continue to grow. Illegal immigration has become a net positive for the U.S. economy. But what can we do to offset the them coming into the country illegally? And possibly just for temporary so they don't permanently replace U.S. native citizens. We need to reform our visa process. So there are three types of main visas given out. The H-1B visa, which is for specialized workers usually requiring a college degree, and the H-2A and H-2B, which are for seasonal, H-2A being agriculture, H-2B not being ag agricultural. We predict that in the future, if we can reform this visa process, illegal immigrants will elect to uh, go for these visas as they have been at uh, recurring rates, but more resources are needed to disperse these visas. So there's actually some contradictions in literature here. So Stauffer at the Cato Institute found that black native citizens of the U.S. and Hispanic native citizens of the U.S. have are at a possibility of being truly replaced by illegal immigrants. Why is this? It's because these populations are historically tend to follow unskilled labor, and these illegal immigrants tend to work for less money, uh, which means employers would rather hire the illegal immigrants over the U.S. native citizens, which can lead to good paying jobs not being given to native citizens. But the ACLU, on the other hand, has found that illegal immigrants pose no direct threat to U.S. native citizens' job prospects as they actually create jobs. So, drug cartels and illegal immigration, how do these things relate? Well, first of all, drug overdoses are still on the rise. So, we have seen a lot more conjecture about illegal immigration because of the historical stigma between drugs, cartels, and illegal immigrants. Why is this? Because drug overdoses are still on the rise, according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, and they have risen almost every single year for the last 23 years. Why has this recently reached a fever pitch in the U.S.? Well, the UCLA Health has found that fentanyl overdose in teenagers have increased rapidly in the last few years, and because of the stigma, many people blame open border policies and the Biden administration for this. Is this true? We have found that it is not. The Cato Institute has found that most fentanyl, around 90%, comes into the United States from U.S. citizens who are recruited by these cartel organizations through legal immigration border crossing checkpoints. Because these drugs are so small and easy to conceal, it is easier for them to get across where they're likely not to be frisked, or rather than a legal immigrant who is likely to be apprehended by border authorities, at least temporarily, and frisked. We have also found that the worse the crackdown on the border is, the deadlier the drugs get, and that is because typically these drugs are more potent when they are smaller and easier to conceal, rather than large bales of heroin. It can be a tip of a pinpoint of fentanyl. Uh, so, why is this a serious national security risk? The reason cartels are a national security risk is not because of an escalation of violence or because of worsening of the drug epidemic. The real reason is that the only way to stop them in the near future may be to directly challenge Mexico's sovereignty, which could lead to a massive international crisis between the U.S. and Mexico. Why is this? It is because of human smuggling profits, which have recently become a $1 billion business, according to Center for Immigration Studies, and possibly profiting for the cartel's drugs. Uh, it is possible that the cartels will eventually outgun the Mexican military, and therefore their power will go completely unchecked, with the U.S. being able to do little but directly intervene militarily. So, what steps can we take to combat cartel activity? The first thing we can do is allocate significant funding to new drug detection capabilities targeting small, highly potent drugs such as fentanyl, and supply all legal entry points to the United States and Border Patrol agencies with said capabilities for field use. Second thing we can do is allocate significant funding to scientific studies seeking to combat addiction and facilitate new capabilities for helping U.S. citizens suffering from addiction. Third thing we can do is allocate significant funding to public resources such as addiction centers, hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and municipal governments to target addiction as a disease at its very source. These steps being to combat the profiteering of cartels on drugs and reduce the U.S. population's dependency on these cartels. Uh, we can also further diplomacy with the Mexican government and lobby for the use of U.S. military capabilities in Mexico against cartel armies, including military and intelligence aid to the Mexican government to keep their armed forces more powerful than cartel armies so that they can deal with this without the United States needing to involve themselves in covert action. What else can we do? We can make fentanyl smuggling by United States citizens an offense on par with treason to significantly deter U.S. citizens from partaking in this and just make it not worth it no matter the money. And we can also increase intelligence capabilities for assisting U.S. citizens being blackmailed by cartel enterprises to conduct their activities for them. So how do these two things relate to make the situation more complicated? Well, you can't go without illegal immigration and cartels because they directly profit, or they directly both use the border, and the cartels directly profit off of this. While illegal immigration might be a net positive for the U.S. economy, cartels are a serious national security risk that need to be dealt with. So Operation Lone Star. What is Operation Lone Star? Operation Lone Star is a multi-agency Texas state effort since 2021 by Texas Governor Greg Abbott to curb illegal immigration as the direction of state politicians. Since 2021, Operation Lone Star has led to over 343,000 apprehensions, 23,000 criminal arrests, 21,000 reported felony charges, 9,100 illegal immigrants bused to different states, and 365 million lethal doses of fentanyl seized. We believe that due to the success of this operation, it is very likely that not only will this operation will continue, but that more state government-run operations on a similar scale will be initiated in the future. But due to the significant number of apprehensions and criminal charges filed, we recommend that the federal government aids in providing resources to the state of Texas, facilitate humane treatment of this new, extremely sizable inmate population, and to uphold the constitutional rights guaranteed to these individuals in the United States. We also recommend policymakers draft federal legislation to manage these large-scale operations without overstepping the legal boundaries these states are afforded. So how do illegal immigrants act in the United States once they're here? So crime. An hour stay at the Cato Institute has found that illegal immigrants are actually less likely to commit crime, popular to contrary belief. They only committed 782 crimes per 100,000, which pales in comparison to the figure of 1,422 per 100,000 found in the native-born population. So we believe this trend will continue as illegal immigrants are coming to seek economic prosperity in the United States and usually want to be on their best behavior so that they do not jeopardize this opportunity they have found themselves in. But also, on the other hand, we have Budeman at the Cato Institute has found that illegal immigrants from Central and South America are also much more likely to be educated, which makes us recommend that policymakers provide funding for the education of undocumented migrant youth to build a stronger and more educated workforce in the near future, as many of these illegal immigrants will end up staying in the United States. There is no reason to propose legislation targeting these individuals for substance abuse or criminal issues, and we just need to educate them and make sure that there's no humanitarian crises rather than by being biased against them and expecting them to commit crimes. So the Mexican government, how have relations between Washington and Mexico City been recently? Recently, there was a attack on four American citizens traveling through Mexico en route to cosmetic surgery, killing two of them. They were then these two bodies, and the two wounded other Americans were returned by the Gulf Cartel with an apology to the Mexican and United States governments and the victims' families. So how did the U.S. Mexican president respond to this uh, about an intervention? So there have been recent calls because of this attack for the U.S. military to get involved and put a stop to cartel dominion in many Mexican states. He called this an offense to the Mexican people. If we are to take this cartel threat seriously, the U.S. government must allocate significant resources to the Mexican government and lobby for increased U.S. involvement. It is worth noting that Mexico has a very poor democracy index score, ranking 89th in the world, and is classified as a hybrid regime, according to the Mexican Daily News. This is due to widespread corruption and a lack of political freedom. Um, U.S. policymakers must be aware that they may be intervening directly in cartel interests when working with Mexican policymakers, even the president himself, even though there is no evidence of this. We believe it is in direct interest of the United States to work with the Mexican government on cracking down on cartel activity to curb the human and drug smuggling industries between the two countries. We also believe that a direct military intervention may be necessary in the near future, leading to a extremely decreased relations between the two countries, which U.S. Policymakers must be willing to do anything to avoid. Things to think about. Uh, Steps to combat these issues. So, what steps can we take to combat these issues? We must reform our immigration policy. We must go harder on cartels and not the people that are using their services. Um, the direct source of the national security threat is the cartels themselves and the threat they pose to toppling our ally Mexico's government and subverting democracy just south of our border. Um, our enemy is not the addicts in America using their drugs or the illegal immigrants coming over the border through their services. Another thing to think about, this is a complicated issue because these cartel activities that are a threat coincide directly with illegal immigration, which is a net positive for the U.S. We must learn to pick apart these things and try to learn to go with one and not the other while also maintaining a strong posture of monitoring illegal immigration and not just letting our borders be completely open to anybody and everything. Thank you.